I'm back. This is Chris Gardner of the Houston Round Ball Review. I've begun my hopefully annual interview segments, talking with beat writers from the American Athletic Conference who cover basketball in the conference. Joining me right now is Taylor Eldridge, one of the best in the business doing what he does. He covers Wichita State Shockers basketball. Taylor, as always, man, thank you for joining me. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks so much for having me on, Chris. I appreciate it. You do a great job yourself.
Thank you, man. Let's recap last season for the Shockers. COVID, new coach, Coach Brown, taking over on an interim basis. We're winning the conference championship. All those things. Just recap last season.
Yeah, it was a really wild season, and you kind of undersold it there with the coaching change. That was a huge deal in Wichita. Greg Marshall was bigger than Wichita State basketball, and down that was shocking news for a lot of people in Wichita, and really put the program in a little bit of turmoil. It happened right before the start of the season. A lot of people forget that. It wasn't like Coach Brown had months to prepare as the head coach. I mean, we're talking no more than 2 weeks before the first game, and then you mentioned the COVID deal too, and they had that season opening tournament in South Dakota. They fly up there, they test positive upon arrival, so they get the first 3 games of the season wiped out. So it's just a total mess, and it's just looking like everything that could go wrong this season was going to go wrong, and then they start out and they lose back-to-back games at home to Missouri and Oklahoma State. They had problems in their season opener against Oral Roberts, who at the time we didn't know they were that good. Obviously they proved themselves plenty capable in the NCAA tournament, but first 3 games of the year, this season was looking like, hey, WSU, they're just going to be trying to keep their head above water and just not have an embarrassing season. But yeah, you got to give a ton of credit for Coach Brown, Isaac Brown. 19 years as assistant coach at the D1 level. I think he's like 55. I forgot his exact age, but I mean, he's put in his time. He was ready for this opportunity, and I think the thing that stands out in talking to people is that he acted the same way he's acted, the last 6 years he was in Wichita as an assistant coach. Even though he was the head coach, he still did everything that he used to do as an assistant coach. I mean, he would rebound for guys in practice. He would, in video breakdowns, he likes to do all of the video scouting, which is pretty rare for a head coach. A lot of the times they delegate that to, a video coordinator or an assistant coach. But, IB likes to have his hands on, his fingerprints on just about everything in this program. And he's so easygoing, so laid back, and all these players really, really responded to him. And he's, a player's coach. And yeah, WSU ended up turning the season around and had a pretty remarkable run. Ends up at 16-6. They win the American Athletic Conference outright. Obviously fans from Memphis will probably Memphis, Houston will probably protest that because WSU didn't play complete round robin, but their own. It was all other teams canceling due to COVID reasons. But yeah, a pretty remarkable year for WSU to get their first American title. And I mean, it's really sparked an interest in Coach Brown, and obviously earned him that full-time contract with WSU. And now I think it's kind of rejuvenated the fan base. They thought it was going to be maybe a turning point in the program, but now IB has kept the ball rolling, and now they're expecting big things this next year too.
Let's get into it. You touched on it. Tyson Etienne, co-player of the year. I get a kick out of how each school kind of forgets about the other person who shared the player of the year honor, but that's okay. But the Shockers got to the tournament, NCAA tournament, did not go with the way they wanted to, but did the team really believe, did you believe that they had earned a shot to the tournament rather than being, one of those last ones in?
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough deal because no fault of their own. A lot of those non-conference opportunities to improve the resume got taken away from them. Like I mentioned, that South Dakota tournament, so they really didn't have the resume to say we're absolutely in this tournament, we belong, we've proven it. Obviously the Houston win is what that kind of saved their season in terms of the NCAA tournament hopes. That was the win that got them in the tournament. But outside of that, they really didn't have too many, supporting victories. It was just a down year in the American. There just weren't that many opportunities to, get those tournament wins. And the two that really would have helped was, playing SMU. But, they were just, they just couldn't get out of the COVID protocol the last, 2 months of the season, it felt like. So that was a bummer we didn't get to see. I really wanted to see Kendrick Davis. He's probably my favorite player in this conference, just electric to watch. So I'm looking forward. I think the American is pretty stacked this next year. But to answer your question, though, I did think they belonged in the tournament. If you win the American Athletic Conference outright, I think it's a good basketball conference, and I think the winner should be able to play in the NCAA tournament. So especially if you win it outright, obviously the year before Tulsa, being a three-way split, they probably weren't going to get in. So, but if you win it outright, I think the American is, that level of conference where you deserve to get in based on that.
Now, you and I have talked about this previously. Last year was a down year for the conference. You touched on a little bit. Let's just get into this year. We have Andy Katz with NCAA.com has 3 teams from the American in his Power 36. Houston, Memphis, the Shockers. Do you agree with that? Do you think it should be more?
Yeah, I think I'm optimistic. I thought going into this last year, I thought it was going to be a little bit of a down year. You could kind of just see it at the top, and then obviously with Cincinnati just kind of bottoming out, that was a surprise. SMU just seemingly, just couldn't stay on the floor. I thought they had a really, really good team, and it seems like we say that every year with SMU, though. It's like they always have the potential, they always have talent, but can they fulfill that potential? So that's gonna be the same thing this year. Kendrick Davis, I think him and Tyson Etienne, I think they're the 2 best players coming back in this conference. So I think Kendrick had a pretty good case to be, that conference player of the year. It's just I think what hurt him was just not being on the floor enough to be in that argument. And Houston's not going anywhere. Sampson has done such a good job of recruiting specific types of players, that bring toughness and just that edge. And they're going to kill everybody on the glass. It's just you just know that's what you're going to get from them. And then the same deal with Memphis. It seems like ever since Penny took over, it's like they're going to have a ton of talent, probably have the most talented roster, in the American. But is this the year that they put it all together? How much will Larry Brown help? Being on the bench for Penny, with the X's and O's and just guiding him throughout this. So I think, I think the American optimistically should look at this as a potential 4-bid league this year. I think the clear top tier, you're probably looking at Houston, you're looking at Memphis, and I think Wichita State's kind of that third team that a lot of people are going to put there. But then you got a lot of really interesting teams on the second tier that could absolutely sneak their way up, best case scenario, teams like SMU. I don't think Cincinnati will be there right away under Wes Miller, but that's a really I thought it was a really good hire. They could bounce back and be an upper echelon team. UCF has a ton of talent coming back. They're kind of the super team. I really like what they have coming back. Tulsa, Frank Haith, they just they're always a tough out. They're never going away. So I think they're a team to watch as well. So yeah, I think the American is shaping up after a down year. I think this is going to be a very strong bounce back year. They should expect at least 2 teams in, probably 3, and then like I said, optimistic. You're hoping you can get 4 in.
What are your expectations? Because Joe Lunardi had today, his, I guess, monthly off-season bracketology. He's got U of H and Memphis in. He doesn't have the Shockers. Do you see the Shockers? Do the Shockers? I think the Shockers expected, but do you think they should be in the tournament this year?
I think they should. I think with Tyson Etienne coming back, I talked to his trainers throughout this NBA draft process, and they're so high on what he is doing and how he's transformed his body and just his work ethic. And everybody I talked to just said this guy is going to be a monster. He's an NBA player. Regardless of if he comes out this year or not, he's going to play in the NBA. So I think Wichita State, it's interesting because a lot of people don't really, unless you follow this very, very closely, you're not going to know. You just see Etienne coming back and you see the points per game and just assume he's going to, go back to that role. But, what Wichita State is counting on is not only is Tyson coming back, but they're moving him to point guard. They're going to have him on the ball way more this year, maybe not full time, but he's going to definitely play a lot of point guard, run him in pick and rolls. I mean, that's what he's going to do in the NBA. So I think IB is going to turn the reins over to him. Tariq Gilbert, graduated. He's on his way out. So there's a natural void there. But you don't want to take Tyson away from what he does best, which is, you just set those pin downs for him, let him come up and just catch and shoot. That's his bread and butter. But, he's also the best playmaker on Wichita State's roster. And I think that's going to unlock a huge season for him. I'm expecting him to have a very, very big season. And WSU, I think, with just the natural, the people leaving and the people that are coming back, Ricky Council, the fourth, is a name to watch. This guy is the real deal. I've been able to watch him a few times this summer in pickup games, and he is just, he looks like the best player on the floor. Obviously, Tyson's not back right now in Wichita, but, Council, definitely a name to remember. He's going to be a big-time player. Dexter Dennis is looking way better off the bounce. Morris Udeze really came on strong at the end of last season, especially that NCAA tournament game, probably the best game of his career. He's a little undersized, 6'8" center, but, works hard and is basically the only low post presence that WSU has. So those four guys, that's a really salty starting lineup. And then you have like Monzie Jackson, who showed flashes last year. I think he's going to get an expanded role. They really, really like the playmaking and energy and effort that he brings. Then they added two, instant impact transfers too. Quay Grant's a Division II All-American last year at West Texas, and he's a big-time player. They really like him. Then they added Abilene Christian Joe Pleasant, who's a very, very solid 4. He can play probably a little 5, if needed. Is not going to score 20 points a game, but he does all the little things. Just a very good glue player. So I think Wichita State has the ingredients to be a very, very special team. What I've been telling people is that, they might not win the American this year, but I do think that they're going to get a better seed in the NCAA tournament. And I think they'll have a better resume and just be a better team overall. Even if they don't win the American like they did last year, I think they will take a step up this year.
Have the Shockers announced any of their non-conference games?
Not all of them. They have 8 announced right now. From what I've been told, it's basically all the big ones. So they're going on the road at Missouri, at Oklahoma State. They get K-State at home in the downtown of Wichita Arena. So it's a little bit of a neutral floor. And then they're going to the Las Vegas tournament, which should produce 2 big time games. They're playing Arizona in the first game in Vegas. And if they win that, they're probably going to play Michigan, which is, in everybody's top 10 coming back this season. So that would be a big, big time game. And if not, then they'll play UNLV. 2 potential big time games there in Vegas, and then at Mizzou, at Oklahoma State, and then K-State at home. And then the rest are probably high games.
Yeah, that's a solid non-conference schedule. U of H's done the same thing, neutral site Oklahoma State, home game with Virginia, and then being in the Maui Invitational with Oregon and those teams like that. So it seems like those 2 teams, and I'm sure Penny's doing the same thing with Memphis. So what do you think is going to take for the American to get more recognition nationally?
Yeah, I think it's the same problem. The last few years definitely is that they've just kind of, not performed up to their ability in the non-conference. Obviously last year, the opportunities just weren't there because of COVID. But even I think I remember the year before that, and the year before that too was, just non-conference. The American top tier teams just did not have a good, a good non-conference, and that's the way you get respect is, you go out and beat these, Big 10, Big 12, ACC teams, on the road at neutral sites. That's the only way that the American's going to, play their way in. And what really hurt Wichita State, obviously Houston was in pretty secure, but what hurt Wichita State and Memphis last year was that, the middle of the pack was just so bad in the RPI rankings. And it just, like I said, didn't present any opportunities to move up. All those teams were in the hundreds in the late 90s. And it really hurt the conference. So, even if they don't make the tournament, teams like Cincinnati, UCF, SMU, the conference needs to be rooting for those teams that have a very good non-conference to come into conference play with a very high net rating. And even teams like, Tulsa, Temple, USF, teams like that, if they can have a good season, a good preseason too, that would be crucial as well. So I think that's the only way you go out. And then obviously I think Houston's run, in the NCAA tournament, that earns the conference a lot of respect. And you just have to have teams go on deep. Memphis winning the NIT helps. So at the end of the day, though, it's like you got to get into the big dance and then prove you belong.
From your perspective, were you surprised at Houston's run in the tournament?
I was. I thought this last year roster was not their best since I've been covering. I joined right when Wichita State.
Stop right there, Taylor. Stop right there. I agree with you.
Yeah,
I don't believe it was their best roster. So yeah.
Yeah, it was surprised because I joined right when WSU came over to the Americans. So the 17-18 season, I remember the Rob Gray years, and they had it just seems like they always have good guards and good big guys. And I thought this year's roster, without who's the guy that transferred out? Caleb Mills. Yeah.
Caleb Mills,
Yeah, I just thought they needed someone like that, just a secondary, creator, someone who could just go get their own shot. I thought that missing piece was going to hurt them in the tournament, but, defense and rebounding, that can carry you a long way. And I think, it sounds like they might have even surprised, a few of their own fans with just how deep they went. But, anytime it gets into postseason play, I just love the way that Sampson, coaches basketball, the way they play. Maybe not like the most analytically friendly. They take a lot of mid-range jumpers, but they make it back by all those offensive rebounds and just all the hustle plays. And it seems like they always have one of those guys that just goes crazy for offensive rebounds and gets every loose ball. And then there's surround him. I love Marcus Sasser's game. So they're. Even though they have a ton of turnover this coming year, I have no doubt that they're going to be right back in that race for the American title, and they're going to be a team to beat in the AAC for sure.
And I think fans sometimes forget or don't want to realize it's very hard to get to the Final Four. It's difficult. Yeah. You need some luck. This year's U of H team with Josh Carlton as their big man will allow Fabian White to play some more his more natural position. This year's team may be better, deeper than last year's team, but might not get to the Final Four because of matchups, breaks, things like that. So
you look at the route they got to the Final Four too. I think that was a little fortuitous too. Not playing any top 20 teams basically. Oregon State was playing very well when they played them, but Rutgers, Syracuse, those teams were exactly, stellar. So, you would expect Houston to win those matchups. But, if you would have said, before, if they make it to the Final Four, that's a huge accomplishment. And, it was pretty cool to see, someone like, Giroux kind of, I thought he really matured and played a big role. And, I loved his stats. He always – just a guard that always got like steals and blocks. High assist rate. It was always pretty intriguing. But then you watch him play, and it was, translate to. It just always seemed like something was missing with him. It seemed like this last year, that's when he kind of put it all together. and really became, you know, a reliable player for Houston. And you know, that's the stuff that you love to see as a coach. You know, guys mature and feel that potential. And I'm sure, you know, looking back on that run, he's going to be remembered, you know, pretty fondly, because from what I could tell on, you know, Twitter and just social media, that he was kind of a, you know, a controversial or, you know, polarizing player before this last year.
Yeah, and you know, his junior season with the biting incident in Cincinnati, and
Mm-hmm.
he was so up and down his junior year,
Yeah.
but he really grew and developed and matured his
Yeah,
senior year. Really
he can lock people up too. He's
Yeah.
got some claims.
Taylor, how long have you been doing what you've been doing, man?
So college basketball wise, I've done this since, like I said, Wichita State came over. So the 17-18 season. So yeah, 4 years doing Wichita State, and then I've done like high school sports and stuff like that for about like the last decade here in Wichita.
Do you enjoy it? This your passion? This all you want to do the rest of your life?
Yeah. I love basketball. So this is like the dream for me, to just focus on, you know, a very good Division I basketball team and be able to cover them. And you know, now I have to do a lot of other stuff, a lot of high school sports, a lot of just you know, minor league pro sports here in Wichita. But you know, during basketball season, I get to just you know, sit back and kind of dissect the Shockers. So that's really cool. You know, I just love, you know, watching the game, learning about it. You know, I like, you know, looking for those little things. You know, obviously everybody sees the points and, you know, the big plays, but just looking at little stuff that players do that lead to winning. That's always fun to go back and look at and those situations.
I'm hoping that COVID continue to wane, that we can have more in-person, face-to-face interaction this season. I have not heard promising things about a media day for basketball being in person. Last heard is going to be virtual, so that's kind of disappointing. Mm-hmm. But what are your thoughts on the conference tournament? Are you in favor of a conference tournament?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always fun. I really like that Fort Worth arena and that setup down there. I had a really good time this last season. I thought it was a ton of fun. There's just a lot more to do in that area than I thought there was, and the arena is obviously beautiful. And so yeah, I think it's a really good setup. It was kind of fun to have the rotating, you know, host cities. I remember, I think it was the first year I did it. Memphis hosted it, and that was fun. I think that was last year, and they went on that crazy run in the conference tournament, and people were like, "Is he going to save his job if they win this tournament?" And that was pretty fun. I think WSU and Houston played in the semis. That was the Rob Gray era that he seemed like he always would get the best of WSU. And yeah, I think that was intriguing, but I like having it at Fort Worth. It sounds like it's going to be there for a long time. And you know, more times than not, you know, the regular season AAC champion is going to get into the tournament. So I don't think they have any, you know, concern of, you know, playing out a tournament and then the regular season champion being left out. So I'm in favor of it.
I just, you know, Dickies Arena is nice. That's where U of H, Oklahoma State will be playing neutral site this season. I just want the conference to promote it more.
Yeah.
You know, do a better job, because Texas is football country, man. Well, first, it's football country, but it's also Big 12 country.
Yeah.
So needs to let more people know about the American and the great basketball played in the conference. So promote it more, do a better job of that. So that's why I'm holding out hope that there is a media day, and I would like to see it in Fort Worth, have it at the site of the tournament. Yeah,
that would be cool, and especially now that I think the conference offices are all moved down there now too. So yeah, it would make sense. I did like those trips to Philly in the fall. That was always fun. But yeah, I mean, I think Fort Worth would make a lot of sense for basketball. But yeah, I mean, it's like the conference is so spread out too. It's tough to have a centralized location when, you know, you go from Kansas to all the way down to Texas, all the way over to Florida, all the way up to Philadelphia. You know, that's such a big conference area just on the map. So wherever you go, some fan bases aren't going to be able to travel, but I think Fort Worth sets up probably the best for the biggest traveling, fan bases. WSU, seems like Cincinnati always draws well. Houston, teams like that. Memphis is always good too.
Is there anything you want to touch on, mention that we haven't talked about?
No, I mean, I think this is I'm about ready to sit down. I've been doing a lot of other stuff sports-wise. I haven't been able to sit down and kind of really dig into, who's coming back. And obviously with Wichita State's roster finalized now, I need to do that pretty soon, just kind of do a look around the conference. But, just from what I've been seeing on Twitter and kind of I was doing it early in the offseason, just who's coming back and who's leaving. It seems like the conference is set up for a very, very good. Like I said, I think UCF is a good sleeper team that could crack that top 4. I would go just off the top of my head. I trust Houston more than Memphis, so I'd go Houston, Memphis, Wichita State, 1, 2, 3, and then I think after that you can go whatever you like. UCF, SMU is obviously going to be very talented. Cincinnati, depending on how much you like them in year 1 of that new coach. So. But yeah, I think it's going to be an exciting year for AAC basketball after kind of a down year last year, and it just felt like for those top teams, every game when they didn't play each other was like a landmine. It's like you lose it, your season's done. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. I think it's going to be a lot stronger top to bottom, and a loss to that middle of the pack is not going to kill your tournament chances.
Hopefully the middle tier teams do better non-conference. We have full seasons, so we have more games, more info for the net, the metrics of those things. So I'm looking forward to it. I think this year should be, as you said, at minimum 2. Yeah, and I think 3. I feel safe.
Yeah,
3.
Yeah. If you're the conference, you feel like you need to get 3 in this year, especially after the last few years. Kind of being on the more of the disappointing side. I think that first year I did came over to 2018. I think they got 4 in, and then it's been kind of I think Temple got in to make it 4, and then ever since then it's been kind of on the downhill. So they need to get back to that 3-4 if they're going to establish themselves and make that push to be considered a high major. I think some people already do, but to make it unanimous to be viewed on that top tier level. You got to get, 3 or 4 teams in every year.
How can folks find you on Twitter, social media?
Yeah, just my name, Taylor Eldridge. That's my Twitter handle. And my stuff's all on Kansas.com. And I'll be posting a lot. This week is TBT. Wichita State has an alumni team, and they got Fred VanVleet and Landry Shamet coming back to be in attendance for it, to watch it. So it's going to be a big, Shocker reunion kind of. But after that, I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff on WSU basketball this summer, how workouts are going and how the team's looking. So they can find all that stuff on Kansas.com.
Second Taylor Eldridge, as always, man, I look forward to seeing you when the Shockers come to town. And who knows, man, I might see you when UAS goes up there.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks again for having me on.
Thank you, man. You take care.
You too.